Your intimate understanding of this. Of course, law and order measures, alcohol measures have to be part of it. But what is the underlying problem? Is it the fact that there just aren't jobs and opportunity for young Aboriginal people? Is that a big part of it? Are some of the remote communities and town camps, should they just not be there because there is no sense of hope for the people who are in those places?
Well, look, what I like to tell people is that if you want to see socialism at play, go out to a remote community. It's there on full display. You've got people who are completely reliant on government handouts and support and government funding. There is very little opportunity in terms of private business and enterprise and the ability to, create jobs in the private sector out in these places. Look, aside from that, there are measures that need to be put in place. Or at least, when I was Deputy Mayor in Alice Springs, I left the council with the ability to be able to create apprenticeships and traineeships for young people as a sort of diversion from incarceration. This should be supported. The foot patrol, the elder foot patrol, should be reinstated. That was working within our community. But you know what? The underlying issue, as I keep saying, is the acceptance of violence in many of these communities. Domestic and family violence, child sexual abuse, these children who are on our streets, when they've been failed by their family, they're also being failed by the system. And the system is designed to put them back into dysfunctional circumstances and re-traumatise them, as opposed to uphold their human rights as children who are Australian citizens. And it's based on the fact that they're Indigenous, that their rights are not being upheld. And this is the result of that. This is why those children are on our streets at night. And if it was during Senate estimates that I questioned the Human Rights Commissioner for Children on what measures the Human Rights Commission were putting into place to support these children, to uphold their human rights. And they basically, I heard crickets. They had no answers for me. So, we've got these organisations in place that are supposed to do what they're supposed to do to uphold human rights of Australian citizens. That includes Aboriginal children, vulnerable women, and yet they're not being upheld because they're of Indigenous heritage. I don't know how the hell that's supposed to work, but it's clearly not working in places like Alice Springs and the broader community. You've
been drawing attention to these issues since well before you went into Parliament, and since the day you entered Parliament. And back last year, very early on, you were saying you're getting rid of these alcohol bans and getting rid of the cashless debit card were wrong. And Labor ignored you. The government ignored you. I got to assume you're at least pleased there's national attention on it now. You've just got to keep the attention there and make sure the moves, the policies go in the right direction.
Absolutely. We need pressure to come from all Australians, all mainstream media, to actually to demand that the government act effectively without this woke nonsense that we're seeing, and the ideology and the prioritisation of measures that are not working, and actually need to start being honest about the situation that's going on for the situation that I've been calling out for so long. And let's not forget, it wasn't just me back in June who said that everything was going to go to wreck and ruin once the bans were lifted and the cashless debit card was abolished. But there were 9 Aboriginal organisations, health and legal organisations, that actually emailed a letter to Minister Burney. I was CC'd into that email, who were absolutely beside themselves at the fact that the Stronger Futures legislation was coming to an end, that the bans are being lifted,
the
and
government
they too
just
stated
can't claim
what would happen if they weren't put in place.
So many warnings there were indeed. Right. Thanks so much for joining us, Jacinta. I appreciate it. And say congrats to Bess for me.
Thanks, Chris.
Jacinta Nampijinpa Price there in Alice Springs.